Hi, everyone. We're going to have a fun time today, and we're going to be creating gifts. And I thought with the economy being the way it is, and with all the events coming up with this time of year being graduations, Mother's Day, birthdays, you name it, I thought it would be fun to show you how to make gifts from Dollar Tree. So I'm going to be using this cute little stencil I found from Dollar Tree. And I love just the variety of flowers on it because then I knew that I could create endless things. And then I got a frame um, from Dollar Tree. And we're going to be using this. And then I'm also going to be using one of the excuse me, one of the crafter squares, 8x10 hardboards. What I did with this is I used all-purpose sealer, and they have a variety of different types of sealer out there, but I like either Delta Ceram Coat or Deco Art, and it's all-purpose sealer. And what it does is it goes into the surface and seals the cardboard inside of the canvas because it's $1.25 canvas board, so it's not that sturdy. So what I do is I seal the back and then I come in and I seal the front, and then I also went over it with some of the white Deco Art Snow White paint. Now with the wood that they carry, it also isn't the highest quality, so I also use this sealer on there. I don't know if you can see this seam here, but that's from a machine that they use as they run it through on the protection. And so what I do is I come through and I seal it, and then I use a sanding disc to sand it. And then we're going to be putting these cute flowers on here. I did base coat it with the Snow White, just like I did the canvas board. And I need to take a sip of water, excuse me. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to use stencils. And let's talk about the colors that I used. I just picked out what I called bright pastels because I wanted it to be feminine and pretty. And I thought these were really nice, but you can use any colors you want. And so I thought I'd show you my palette here. But let's say you wanted to use bright yellow and orange and red. You could easily do that too. So just because I'm using these colors, do not think you have to use them. Think about the person you're going to create this for, whether it's yourself or your mom or a grandma or a friend or a sister, a daughter. Think about the colors that they would like. So I'm going to put this off to the side, the hardboard off to the side. And I will put a piece of paper underneath here. So what I've done is I've come in and I've begun the stenciling like I did here. And I want to show you step by step how I did all of this. I also want to say that I chose these because they're flat. It's so much easier to stencil on flat surfaces. But this is a piece of paper that's stock paper. And if you had, let's say you had something curved and you wanted to decoupage the flowers on, you could easily come in, stencil the paper, cut it out, and then put it on the curved item. Because Dollar Tree just has so many things that are inexpensive that you could get. You could make a pretty candle. You could, they have those little cups that are wood. You could make that so they can store their pencils and pens in. There's endless possibilities, and I absolutely love this stencil. I just wish I would have gotten two of them because there's times where I'm using like this one. I use this flower a lot, the small one here. And I wish I would have had two because sometimes the paint is wet and I have to wait for it to dry. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come in with this small flower. And what I like to do, so I know where the center is, I like to take a pencil and just mark the center of it. The center, there you go. And then that way, when I come in, I know exactly where I need to put this. And then I try to line it up so that each one of these are matching the little rounded flowers. I use a variety of things. You can use anything that has a sponge on it. And if you've been doing paper crafting, you probably have blending tools. Well, you can use anything like that because the sponge will hold the paint and it will become like a stamp pad. I like that a lot. I also use daubers. Daubers are perfect because they also have the sponge in it. And what's really important is that you don't have too much moisture and too much paint in. That's where people really get into trouble. There's just going to be times, especially with acrylic paints, they tend to be a little bit transparent. And so you're going to have to just be a little bit patient. I also use a variety of stencil brushes. And if you don't have stencil brushes, that's fine. They do sell them at Dollar Tree. The ones I prefer are from Cupboard Distributing, and they're called Chris's Spectacular Stencil Brushes. And then also, I'm going to be using the stylus, which I got from Dollar Tree. What I like about it is it has a big tip and a small tip, which then we'll be able to kind of create like little doodle flowers and make them our own. And that's what's really important. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brushes. And and another tip I have is I have a wet paper towel here. What I do is I've got this folded and I'm going to stick my brushes in here so the paint does not dry in them, because I'm going to go back and forth between white and yellow and blue and things like that. So I'm going to pick up my first brush and I'll use the stencil brush because I want to show you how to use it. I really load the paint in here. And so you can see it's got tons of paint in it. But then what I need to do is I need to come back and take out a lot of it. Now, yes, I'd be able to cover a lot more if I had a lot of paint on, but it could create dimensional texture, which I don't want. And I also want to make sure that it's not going to bleed underneath the stencil. Then I'm going to press the stencil firmly in place, and I'm going to pounce up and down. Now, that's still pretty wet. I don't want it that wet. And I like pouncing up and down as opposed to swirling, especially with this type of stencil where there's no adhesive. If you have an adhesive stencil, you can use a little bit more generous paint. But I'm going to just put 2 applications on here. And I lift it straight up and we have a nice little flower on top of the flower. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to work with the next color, which will be yellow. And we're going to put the yellow flower in. And you can use whatever flowers you want on here. This is what I found fit perfectly for me. And so now I'm going to come in and I'm going to use another brush. I'm going to load it in the same manner, really pushing the paint in. And then I come over and I make sure that my paper towel is nice and dry. And I'm using a dry brush because I don't want to have a lot of water in here. That's why I put my brushes in between the paper towels the damp paper towel, so I don't have to worry about rinsing it out. So again, I'm going to pounce. Then while I have the yellow in my brush, I'm going to come over here and do my first center, loading my brush the same way, pouncing. This will also take 2 coats, unless you don't mind it looking a little bit orange, that's fine too. But see how it automatically starts looking like a little flower. I love that. Okay, then we're gonna come in and we're gonna use the same flower that we used for the white center. But before we do that, mine is already dry. I'm gonna go ahead and repeat it. So then I don't have to worry about the blue being on the stencil. So I just come in and line it up. And I loaded the brush the same way. Excuse me. Lift it straight up. Now that I had a little bit of paint, a little bit of too much paint in there. So what I'll do really quick is get a little scrubby brush that I dampen. I'm going to just scrub away this side. But also, you don't have to worry if you just have a little bit like that, because we are going to outline them with black with an indenting pen, and then that wouldn't show at all. But I wanted to show you how you can correct it with a little bit of water. So this was up like that. I'm going to bring this over into this corner. And I'll take another stencil brush and I'm going to load it with the turquoise blue. I want to make sure, like when I was just pressing there, it was making these come up. I want to make sure I press evenly on the stencil. You could even tape it into position. You have to make sure the stencils are nice and flat against the surface. Otherwise, you can easily go underneath them. Also use how much pressure you're using, because if you press too hard, it would also force the bristles of the brush to go underneath the stencil sides. Okay. Now we're going to go into these little green ones, and I'll get another brush. I know so many colors. But if you have a variety of daubers, you could use daubers too. These are my preference. As a matter of fact, I will use the dauber right now for the green. The only problem you have is you have to watch out with the daubers because they're not really small. And this is a very small flower, so I need to make sure that I don't go into the other openings on the stencil. You can always tape around it. And I'm going to put a variety of these in. And sometimes I'll just put a half of a flower in, just to balance the color. This is just done very randomly. What I like about the daubers is they hold the paint just like a stamp pad. And so sometimes I don't have to keep reloading, which is a little different than a brush. Okay, I think that's good. I'm gonna put my dauber underneath here too, just in case I need that again. then what I want to do is I want to go into the centers. And you can see over here I have yellow in the center. And then I have blue and purple. So we're going to be using first the smaller one. And I will grab my brush with my yellow paint in it. And we'll put the center in. I'm going to come over here and reinforce this with the larger circle. And normally 2 applications is more than enough. And then we're going to come in with the smaller circle over here, and I will grab my brush with the purple in it. I haven't used purple, so I'll get another brush. And I'm going to lay that right on the center. So you don't have to have any painting skills at all. And then we're going to come in the center over here and put in blue, turquoise blue. Now, if you wanted to have a smaller center, you could always use a hole punch, use some cardstock, and you could make a smaller stencil yourself, and then you'd have a smaller center. But I'm going to just go with what we have on the stencil. Okay, see, it's already looking really cute. Now what I want to do is come in with my stylus, and I'm going to make some yellow dots. And I'm using the big end of the stylus, and I'll reload it each time. And try to make sure your stylus is going exactly perpendicular to your surface. If you come in on the side, it doesn't make a nice round circle. Okay. And I'm going to come in with this stylus, and I'm going to put a center. And this is where you could use a hole punch. Then in the center of here, I'm just layering colors to add interest, making it more like a doodle flower. Then on here, I'm going to make sure I clean my stylus really good. And I'm going to use descending dots. So I'm going to start out with 1, and then I'm not reloading it. And you can see it gets smaller. I'll lift it up. So you can see how the dots go from large to small. And it's because I have not reloaded the stylus. If you want them all the same size, you have to reload it each time. But if you don't reload it, then there's a gradation of size. And it makes it look a little bit lacy. This is very fun and very relaxing to do too. Unless you're on a deadline and you wait till the last minute to make your presents for your friends or family. I always decide at the last minute what I'm going to do. I started laying my hand on the side, and I have to make sure I keep it upright. But you can see how just adding a few dots like this is adding a lot of interest to the flower. And it doesn't take that long to do. I'm going to take some turquoise with the large end, and I'm going to come around here and make sure you put them in about the same position each time. I want them to be about the same size, so I really need to reload each time. If they're not the same size, you can just go over them if you reload. Okay, now I'm going to use the smaller end, and we're going to go around the center. I'm getting smaller dots because I'm laying my stylus on the side. That's much nicer. And I'm just adding color. Now, one of my favorite tools is the IdentiPen. And the reason this is different than like a Sharpie is permanent, but it's not waterproof. This is both permanent and waterproof, and you can go over acrylic paints with it, and I love it. So the first thing I'm going to do is come in, and I'm going to make little circles so that it looks like I have white dots. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to begin outlining the flowers. I'm going to stay away from there because I've got a lot of dots. So I have to be very careful that I do not put my hand in the dots. It takes the dots that we've put down take a little bit longer, and they take longer to dry. And so I'm going to make sure that I don't get my hand in them by putting my hand over here on this paper. And you can see how much bolder this flower is because we have the IdentiPen in it. I'm also going to make another circle in the center, and we'll come in and fill that in with white. Now I don't have any centers in here. We'll come back and put the pink dots in after I outline them. And I avoided putting those in mainly because, like I said, it takes dots a long time to dry. You could put all kinds of patterning in with the line with your IdentiPen if you want to. I gave it just enough interest. I chose not to put too much time in these because I wanted to make them fun, but fast too. And it really does not take a lot of time to crank these out. I'm also going to put a circle in the center here. I like the pudgy petals on here. I think it's cute. You could put dots in here. I mean, you can keep adding and adding and adding. If you want, you can do it on your cardstock first, and then come back and add to the actual frame itself. And on the second project I'll show you how I did different flowers. Like I said, I wish I would have gotten a second stencil because they're so versatile and you can do so much with them. And you don't have to outline them, but I find that when I outlined each color just became more vibrant. I have to stay away from those blue dots until they're dry. Now, another thing is, I'm not outlining this perfectly, which does not bother me. But if you want it to be nice and clean and neat, you could lay the stencil back down after the dots are dry, and then put your pen against the edges and outline it that way, and you'd have nice crisp lines. Okay, I'm gonna pull some lines down from here. And once those blue dots are dry, I will go around them with the Identipen. I'm going to use my stylus again. I'm going to put white in the center here. And white in the center. And then to the green flowers, I'm going to put pink. Over here, I can also, this is dry now, so I can go back and outline it. And I'm going to show you how I outline these. But the reason I'm very hesitant to go by here is if you get wet paint in your Identipen, you'll ruin it. So I will go around and do that, but I still want to let them set up a little bit. So I'm going to set to the side and we're going to talk about the next project. What I did is, I'm not really good at lettering, so I just printed this out. I typed it out in Word, and then I printed it out and I decoupaged it on top of this. But what's really important is you want to keep as little decoupage medium on as possible because you don't want it to ripple. And I like the decoupage matte. You could also use Mod Podge, whatever you have is fine. The other thing you could do is you could just transfer on lettering and then fill it in with the Identipen, whatever is most convenient for you. So then on these flowers, what I did the daisies in the same way as I did the other ones, but I pulled the turquoise in the center and then put dots on it. And I did that so that you would be able to see how you can have a variety of colors and do different patterns using the same stencil. So you can see that even though I use the same stencil, it looks like a completely different flower. So if you were to use different colors with this, you could use one stencil and have a variety of different looks from it. Then I also used the stencil and laid it down and did it just like I did the other ones. But I added some leaves. Now I just brushed in leaves, but if you want to, you can use the stencil here to simply put in the leaves and then pull down the bottom. It would be the same shape as these, and it would just be a little bit bigger. But what I like to do is I just like to use a flat brush. And I'm using a number 6 flat brush. And I'm going to just stroke it in. So I go like that. And then I come back and meet it. It's really easy to do. This is a nice light color, so I repeated all of them. I'm going to use my liner brush now, but for those of you who don't like to use a liner brush, and I'm using a script liner, you can use a much shorter one. You can always use a green Identipen to pull in the stems. I'm going to thin my paint with a little bit of water, because that helps the paint move more. And I'm going to just pull the stem. Now this is very, very thin. And I'll probably go back and reinforce it a second time. The colors tend to be transparent, and then when you go in and you add water, it becomes even more transparent. Now on the bottom here, I've written in grandchildren's names. And we're going to just connect them, and that's going to be Grandma's Garden. I'm going to just use my Identipen. I just wrote them in with my own handwriting with pencil first. And then we're going to just use a little squiggle to attach it. I just wanted to make sure I had the words written out so they all looked balanced. And I'm going to take my, because I've got the black down there, I want to pull in the black. So I'm going to just take and pull on this edge and bring it down. It will make the green look a little bit more bold. And the eye will connect to the lettering down there now. Now, if this is dry, which it's not, we'll wait, and then I would do the same thing there. But I want to show you what I did with the leaves. I pulled it a little stem line and then just outline them. Again, you never want to press too hard, and you don't want to pull it over wet paint. Now, the one thing that I have here is a little butterfly, but there's no butterfly on the stencil. So let me show you how I did that. I used this flower here. I simply came and I filled in 2 of the petals. Because to me, they kind of looked like butterfly wings. Then I got my liner brush again, and I took the pink. And I outlined the outside edge with pink. And you can use whatever colors you want. If you wanted to have a blue body, you could use a blue body. So just made a little circle for a head and then pulled a little stroke. And I'm not worried that the pink isn't connected. When it's all dry, I came back in and I outlined it with the marker, the Identipen, and added a few turquoise dots. And I thought that was just such a cute little addition. So let's see if this is dry now. I think it is. So I'm going to grab my DentaPen. And I also got one of these $1.25 frames. So you can see that you can put this in it. And what a lovely present that will be for a grandma. I'm going to set that to the side. And let's talk about our frame. So the frame actually came with this little dowel rod, and that goes in the bottom right here, so it can stand up. I would paint the back white and paint the dowel rod white also. But you can put any sayings you want in here. You could put a photo. It came with this little doggy on the inside, but I'm going to use the back white side to support it. And I just put World's Best Mom. If you were making a sister or something for your sister, it could be World's Best Sister. If someone's graduating, it could just simply say, "You're the best, congratulations." Any quote you want to put in here, just make sure you're putting it right side down. And then I make sure I put the white in. And there you go. We have some really cute presents that we created today. And remember, look around, look at what other surfaces there are in the wood department. And don't be afraid if they are circular. You can always come in and stencil on here, like I suggested, and just decoupage it onto a circular item. You could decoupage onto glass. The only thing I would not do is I would not stencil onto the glass because this is not an adhesive stencil. But I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope you make lots of fun presents very inexpensively. And if you are enjoying all my videos, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And make sure you click that bell so you will be reminded every time I create a new video. So until next time, may painting always bring you joy. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.